Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Insurance Town. I'm the mayor, Heath Sheeran, and the host of this podcast, and I'm pumped you're here hanging out with me today because I got my new friend Paul hanging out with me. As you can see on YouTube, he's hanging out in the background, but I told him to hang tight while I get through some ad reads because I couldn't do this show without my incredible sponsors. And, I got to talk to you about my friends over at One Fort AI. They are AI for insurance agencies. You could save some time. You can win more commercial P&C by automating your submissions, quoting, and binding with AI. And they've already saved agencies thousands of hours by using their platform and One Fort. They dig in a different way using your emails. They work where you work, right where you're at, and they can help you save so much time and effort. Guys, go to onefort.ai and check it out and tell them the mayor sent you. Also, my good friends over at Canopy Connect, the game changer of all game changers. Ladies and gentlemen, they are the one-click solution to getting the deck pages you need to quote your prospects. And they also have the Trailhead, which helps you to choose your own adventure. So no matter how you want to get to your clients, how you want to help them to get that information to you, to quote your prospects that much easier, they can do it. Go to usecanopy.com/Heath. Check it out. Get a demo, get a discount, all the things. They've been with me since the jump. You know them. You love them. If you don't yet, I don't know what you're doing. Go check it out. Also, ladies and gentlemen, get rid of the call centers. Nobody likes a call center. Use a text platform in Mav. Go to hiremav.com and check it out. It is an AI-driven platform to help you to quote and qualify prospects and get them in the hands of your producers and agents and your CSRs, your account managers that much quicker, and engages with them in conversations that's going to help you close more deals. Go to hiremav.com and check it out. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to slide out of the way here in a second so we can bring my man Paul in here and get to know him a little bit. Paul, get in here, buddy. What's going on, brother?
Thanks for having me, my man. I'm really excited to speak with you.
I'm glad we were able to finally connect here. So talk to me a little bit, man. So you're in Florida, right? The most important question I got to ask you for right this minute is, are you a Florida sports fan at all? As far as college sports, are you SEC guy? Are you more ACC? Like, where are you at on that?
So I'm actually a Big Ten fan because I went to the University of Wisconsin.
There you go.
One of the few and the proud that actually went to college for risk management and insurance. So
yeah, it's a good program there.
I'm a Badger through and through. However, I am a Canes fan. I grew up in Miami. Yeah. So go Canes. You fell a little short this year, but what a run we had.
I was about to say, what a run. And it's good to see. I'm not a Miami fan by any means, but it's good to see them kind of back on the map a little bit and having that Miami football program, the Canes, back in the conversation. It's kind of cool.
It's all about the U. So it was good to watch that, but I'm a diehard Dolphin fan, Panther fan, Heat fan. So now enter Miami. So it's been fun to be part of the sports scene here in Miami. Even though the Dolphins are going through some challenges, we'll get through that.
Well, I can't give you too much crap. I'm a Tennessee Titans fan, and so it's rough, man. It's
well. At least you got our boy Camp Ward.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I can respect the Miami program, man. I can do that. So
yeah.
Anyhow, so talk to me a little bit about let's take a walk down memory lane and tell the audience, tell me a little bit about where you came from, and let's walk through your journey to where you got to now, like why you're here now, how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, my story is a family business story. Our business was really started by my father, who started the agency from nothing in 1978. I joined the business right out of college. I had an inkling that I was going to go into the business because I kind of looked at what my dad was doing and one, provided a great life for our family growing up. Two, looked like he was having fun, right? Like he had created a lot of great relationships. We were traveling to different places because of the business relationships that he had created. And so that resonated with me. And for me, who's a social person, values relationships and really enjoys being with people, and that really resonated with me. And if I could do something like that, that would be fun long term. But my first job in the office was putting stamps on envelopes for a penny a piece, right? And then I graduated to being the file boy while files were still there. And my first management job was hiring a couple of my friends to take our agency paperless and just scanning everything into the scanner and then documenting that into the system. And that's how we, got to having a paperless system. This was back in the early 2000s. And now today we've got just about 85 employees, 150 million in premium that's spread across 5 different offices. And we've got commercial lines, we've got personal lines, and we've got life, health, and benefits. So it's been a fun journey. We're growing a whole lot. And I'm lucky to do this alongside my father and my brother.
Dude, I told you, we have so much in common and so much synergy there. I'm second generation as well. Came into the business in the early 2000s with my dad.
Cool.
And I hear that, and it just, one of those things that brings back so many memories of when you first start. And like for me, and tell me if this was the same for you. Like I remember when I first started, I was a young kid. I was 21 when I first got in it with my dad. Actually, younger than that, coming up in high school, helping out a little bit. But I remember walking in, and Dad tells this story all the time that as a punk kid, I didn't know any better, but I walked in and was like, "All right, Dad, where's my desk? Where's my office?" And my dad was like, "Are you kidding me? You got to earn that." And I was thinking, wait a minute, I'm a Sharon. Like my name's on the door. Like, why don't I get a desk? I was like, no, and he was kind of like treating me like, like you said, I started off at the bottom and Dad made me work my way up, but I expected, and I'm so glad I didn't have that silver spoon in my ass. I'm glad that he made me work for it. But I just remember those days. And I'm so glad that he stuck me, in the file room and made me learn from the bottom and stuck me out in the field to do the things. Was it the same thing with you, man? Did you have to start off like that way too?
100%. Like we didn't have desks. We were, when you were done doing all the stamps on the envelopes, we were on the lawnmower. We were painting certain rooms. We were taking out the trash. Sometimes on Saturdays, we would be out tiling floors. I mean, all the things that made us not want to do those things ever again. He was like, this is what it's like. And if you're not going to get good grades or you're not going to work hard, you can do this stuff all day long. You'll be able to find those types of jobs. But, you won't be able to graduate into other things. And even more so as things came on, like no management responsibility without getting our MBA, all of those types of things that were pushed. I mean, we had to continuously improve through education, and we had to get experience, whether it was through MBA or selling a business, in the outside world, to have some real management responsibility within the business.
Yeah, dude. I quickly, which I didn't have the same, where we kind of differ is I went separate ways from Dad and realized I couldn't work with my dad. It's too hard. We brought Dad way too much. And when you talked about going paperless and doing those things, my dad's 84 years old, still slinging insurance to this day. And
nice.
He does it all with paper apps still. And he still does things old school and still crushing, still doing things, but he's just
awesome.
I could never get him to do that. Now he's gotten more into technology. He's gotten, as time gone on, but there's times even to this day, like he'd still call me like, "Hey, I need you to help me with my emails," or "I need you to help me," like the littlest things. But again, I say that, shout out to my father. He's the greatest,
man,
such a good mentor. But I ended up having, going out on my own, starting my own agency at a young age and recruiting, and doing things my own way. But you staying in the family business and growing in that. And like you said, you mentioned the education and dad wanting you to have some of that. For you, what was that for you? Like looking back on that, going through the things you went through and him taking that approach of like, you need to have this education, you need to go through these things, you need to have that real life experience before I just hand you the keys to anything. What was that for you?
I mean, that was just for me seemed like the right thing to do anyway, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
similar to you, right? It was I I had butted heads a whole lot because I had only learned one way. Now getting the perspective and he was right? Like to not really respect my opinion in the beginning because I hadn't really had the experience to prove it. Now that I've gotten the experience to prove it and have, sort of cut my teeth in other parts of the world and other parts of the insurance world, I've got different perspective now that I could challenge him based off of experience, based off of data versus just gut intuition. And that makes all the difference, right? Like when you're coming from things and then from a perspective where you're speaking from experience, you're speaking from the data, and you actually make sense. It's hard to refute those types of things, and those back and forths are actually very healthy for us, and we've been able to navigate those conversations in a very healthy way.
Yeah. So again, going, as you talk through some of that, and you brought up that the agency is now at the size it's at now with 85 150 million in premium and all the different things there. When you first came into it early on, did you see a growth chart that a hockey stick type of growth, or has it always been a larger agency? And what was that when you first came into where you are now?
No, I mean it's been a hockey stick as of the last 5 years. We've doubled in the last 5 years, pretty much all organically. And I think that's a testament to the adoption of technology, making us more efficient. I think it is also really a testament, and most importantly, a testament to the people that are on our team, right? That are good stewards of the products. They're great representatives of our clients, and they're big advocates for our clients. And we've been fortunate enough to bring in such a great team. We've got a group of veterans that have been with us for well over 20 years, and we've got a group of folks that are either just starting in the business or have been with us for under 5 years that are really making their way. And it's having that senior mentorship and these folks that are really hungry to make a name for themselves. We've got a great culture, and that's been why we've been able to grow, is because we've got good people who are all about doing the right thing. Our being a value driven organization where we're family first, business second, all about continuous improvement, all about loyalty, and always doing the right thing. When people could point back to those things on a day to day basis, and that's what's driving them, I think we'll continue to win. There's a lot of bad insurance agencies out there. Good's going to outperform bad in the long run. If we keep doing the right thing, we'll keep getting our share.
And I love that, because I try to, operate in the same mentality, and I always like to have that, the good guys always win kind of mentality as well. But, you brought up something, about, having the vets have been around 20 plus years with you, and then these new guys coming in. And I think that's very interesting to talk about in this day and age, when if they came into the business in the last 5 to 7 years, it's been in the height of a hard market, in the longest hard market cycle we've been in. And you and I have been in this probably about the same amount of time. You said the early 2000s and whatnot. When you start talking through that, you and I even haven't really we've seen a hard market, but not like this. So those that came in the last, let's say 6 years during this height of that hard market, not knowing any different. And then you got some of these older vets, I shouldn't say older, experienced vets telling them, hey, when this market turns around, you got to be prepared for this, and they've been through that. How is that, dynamic working? Are these younger guys listening to that experience and saying, okay, whatever, I've got this? Or is it like they're really soaking it up, taking in the notes and listening? And, some of these veteran guys saying, man, I can learn from this new crop of agents coming up, how they're doing things with AI or social media or insert emerging trend here. Are they really listening to each other, learning from each other?
They are. I think it's more so the younger folks learning from the vets versus the other way around. And it's really, the cycle today is way different than it was even 2 years ago. We're dealing with such a softening market on the property side where the opportunity right now to bring in new business is probably the best it's been in years because the capacity is there to
1,000%.
to support that. So
in certain lines,
yeah, and our book is very real estate heavy. So the real estate centric stuff for sure, the premises driven stuff for sure, but it's also a great opportunity to catch somebody else asleep at the wheel. And so what our veterans are telling our newer folks is we got to be out and about positioning ourselves from a community standpoint, from a networking standpoint, having the right centers of influence that are referring you business, and making sure that you're keeping up on an education front to stay in touch with the latest trends and coverage knowledge. And as forms continue to evolve, we're staying on the cutting edge of those things, so we're providing the best value to our clients.
And what you bring up there is a good point in the sense of, and I know you guys are leaning in on the technology and the AI and things of that nature, but also hanging on and realizing that, and I hate to say it this way, but the old school methods of being involved in the community and building those relationships, those will, in my opinion, will always work, and they will always be, essential to growth, whether you're 5 years in, 2 years in, or 30 years in. And I know that's something that's a part of your culture, and being involved in the community and having that leadership and community engagement, to help strengthen your brand. Talk to me a little bit about that and what that is for your agency, and how you guys are leaning more into that now during this transitioning market.
Yeah, I've got a little book behind my desk that says that it's all about relationships, right? And I have that there because I don't want anybody to lose sight of what's really important, right? Like, we could create all the efficiencies in the world that we want to make through AI, and we could, cut everything out of the organization and make it all digital if we really tried to. But that's not, I think what makes us great. What makes us great is the relationships that we have, built on trust, built on loyalty, built on high levels of execution, and built on being there when it matters. And I always say, when the stakes are high in what we do, being an insurance broker, I think, is the most important type of broker you could be, because the consequences are massive for making a mistake. You give the wrong coverage to an insured, it's their livelihood, it's their most important assets, it is their employees, it is everything at stake. So it's not like being a mortgage broker or real estate broker where you make a mistake, maybe it takes a little bit more time and a little bit more money, but the deal gets done. What we do is extremely important, and there's a purpose behind that. And it all comes back to, it's all about relationships. So in that day, if we don't lose sight of that, we're going to be okay.
What are some things, and you're bringing up some really good points, and I feel like someone gave you a playbook of like how to reach straight into my heartstrings and start playing a fiddle or whatever. I don't know. You've crushed everything, about, my heart and the way I feel about things and what I talk about a lot. And so, what are some things you could tell the audience right now, whether they're a vet or they're brand new in the business, to be able to have that kind of mindset and still be able to provide that value and help people to in their time of stress, their biggest time of stress, how you continue to build that trust, how you can continue to do those things when, let's be honest, we're oftentimes still to this day seen at the bottom where like used car salesmen or sleazy salesmen. We still kind of get that reputation out there, but how can you tell the audience, and how are you guys doing it to where you're still building that trust, still bringing that value and showing we're not just some sleazy salesman. We're here to bring you value, educate you, help you. Go.
It's about two things. One, taking no shortcuts, right? Like it, making sure that you're presenting every option that should be presented to a specific client, prospect, whoever it is that you're talking to. Two, it's being accessible. And a good example of that was just last week. I had a prospect that was in Singapore, and opening a really cool digital platform in the U.S. And only time that he could get on a call was 11 o'clock on a Friday night, my time. No problem. Get on a call, walk him through all the different coverage options, and show him what the differences are between option A, option B, option C. He's like, oh my God, who else am I going to get that from on a Friday night at 11 o'clock? And same thing goes for somebody has a claim, making sure you're picking up the phone and you're doing everything within your control um, to solve their problem. And no machine could do that. And, you can get some efficiencies and knowledge from that, but it's not going to solve every problem you have. And if you're able to problem solve and take the friction out of the process and be an advocate, that's where you add the value. So if you're coming in, be prepared to be accessible all the time and be prepared to not take shortcuts, because that's where you're going to win.
Well, and I think our clients are being trained to take shortcuts. They're being trained to look for discounts. They're being trained to look for the cheapest insurance. And so when you're talking to these clients, on the commercial side, we'll talk for a minute, because obviously we know the personal line is being inundated with ads and commercials of buy cheap, 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 cheap. But on the commercial side, when these business owners, especially, in the space that you're in, they're being faced with a lot, it's easy for them to take those shortcuts, easy for them to look for, higher deductibles or cheaper this or less, liability limits or more here. Like, how in the world do you stick to your laurels on that? And how do you talk to them about that and saying, here's the mistakes you could make by taking that shortcut or by, what'd you say, cutting those corners? How do you talk to your clients about that? How can my audience listening do that better?
Yeah, I think that it's, some folks have fallen on really hard times, right? And there are
100%.
There are sacrifices that they're going to have to make within their business, whether it's, cutting some folks, or whether it's, having to look at different options from an insurance standpoint and maybe take on more risk as things are going the way they are. So what I mean by not taking shortcuts is being creative in the options that you're presenting. Maybe offer a higher deductible option because that's what the client might need right now to be able to get through a tough time, but also letting them know what the implications of taking that on is, and really, explaining in depth, like, hey, you could go with this option, but just understand if X, Y, and Z happens, these are the consequences. And so again, it's just making sure you're pulling out all the stops, showing them the spectrum of what is available, and, based upon your current situation, what makes the most sense for you. But you have to have the full understanding of the whole picture.
And, do you guys at your agency, are you guys get involved a little bit in some of the, I don't know exactly. I guess some of those not ancillary coverages, but some of those other coverages to help with those types of things, whether it's, deductible buybacks, or you get into, I'm blanking on the word I'm looking for. Dang it. I may have to edit that part out, but damn it. I
Oh,
couldn't
oh,
think of the word
oh, yeah,
parametric.
yeah,
I'm going to
sure.
have to, but yeah, I was looking, do you guys mess around in parametrics?
Absolutely. So again, it's just another solution that the insured can consider, and just making sure that they understand that it doesn't work like a traditional policy. And you could get paid for there being no event at all, just because for example a storm got uh, close enough to the coast or close enough to the property where
Sure.
you would get a certain payout, or um, you might not get the a payout at all, and you might have been hurt in a storm um, just because the storm didn't go exactly where it said it was going to go for you to get a payout. So it works both ways. Again, it goes back to not taking shortcuts and making sure that you're explaining all of these different options to the insured, right? But we try and be creative because, again, I think in our world, we've got to find ways to differentiate from somebody else. And if we're bringing a solution that somebody else hasn't even thought of, even if you're not the even if it's not the right solution, at least you're bringing a different option to the table that differentiates you from somebody else. And I think like the way you win is being different and better, but or better, of course, but different and better is always better. Um, and So we try and do those things.
And do you guys? You mentioned you're involved. Your larger agency. You've got commercial lines, personal lines. You do health and benefits. Do you guys get into, and how do you feel about verticals and niches? Do you guys have any particular niches that you dive into?
We do, and certain producers have affinity towards different niches. For example, we've got a producer that only does commercial lines for restaurants and restaurants, bars, and taverns. That's his niche. He does a great job at it. He enjoys going to different restaurants, eating and prospecting that way. And it's a pretty cool way to build a business. We've got one person who focuses on jewelry and jewelry collections, jewelry stores, wholesalers, that whole line of jewelry and fine art. We've got somebody that focuses on religious institutions, another person that focuses on condos, another person that focuses on franchise restaurants, another person that focuses on bonds, another person that focuses on uh, marine. But even though that's a lot of what they do, that doesn't preclude them from being able to write other things. So I would say they have majors and then other business that
No, but I,
they
I think that's
end
cool
up
that
writing.
you are able to stand up these niches to be able to create, a pocket for a producer to come in and to be able to build their brand, build their own niche, while still maintaining, the values you have, on the property side of things, or on, general business type stuff. But being able to say, okay, Bill, Johnny, Sally, whoever, if you want to come in and you come from a world where you want to write churches and religious institutions, great. If you come and you want to write trucking, we'll help you to do that, help you to build that. Is that something that you allow them to have a little bit of freedom in their own personal branding of that and have some autonomy there and to do that kind of thing?
100%. I think like once they find what they really enjoy going after or writing, they'll have an affinity towards it, whether it's the relationships they're building. Like, we've got somebody who's focused on building a contracting vertical or construction vertical, right? Because he enjoys dealing with the folks that are in that world. So he's building out a whole, center of influence stack, a networking stack that helps him get those types of referrals in, because that's who he likes to deal with. And I I think that as folks get an affinity towards something, they'll want to, and they have proven success in it, they'll be able to build on it.
Yeah. And I think Kudos to you on that, because I talked to a lot of agencies that have a little bit of a fear of allowing an agent, a producer within your organization to have that kind of autonomy, to be able to do that, because they might have a fear of, oh, they might leave me to start their own agency, or they might have a fear of a scarcity type of mentality of whatever it might be. And it's like, I think agencies that lean into that and allow them to have that freedom and support them on that and put some marketing dollars behind it and give them that, I think there's a lot of respect there. Obviously, if you've got producers and staff that have been with you for 20 plus years, they see that value that you give them. And so kudos to you on that. And so, talk to me about that for just a second.
100% intentional, and I think that's a differentiator for that separates us from somebody else, right? Like any producer could come in and they've got different support infrastructures for commercial lines business, personal lines business, and benefits business. So if you see opportunity across the spectrum and you've got a friend who's buying a nice home down in South Florida, and that person may have a business and that person may also have employees that they're offering benefits to, you could be that one point of contact, but yet has specialized support on each side. And again, it's been a real help to our producers that they've got different specialized support that they could lean on to bring in all the opportunities that they really want. Nobody's handcuffed here. They're able to really capitalize on their relationships so long as they're out there building the trust and getting that opportunity.
And so, listen, I've got audience members that are listening that might be in that camp that I talked about earlier, that are, a little fearful of that, or maybe like, how do I support them and how do I do that when that's not my wheelhouse? Maybe Paul is good at writing this, or the agency's traditionally been really good at this, but I got this new guy coming in that wants to write restaurants, or they want to write churches, they want to write this. What would you tell them, to help them to not be fearful of that, or to be able to embrace that better and to say, you know what, I will support them?
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, I think a new guy needs to lean on the industry expert in that field. So you've got a new producer that wants to write a bunch of religious institutions. Well, I'm going to make sure that the first few accounts, he's working with the senior producer that has built up a book of that stuff already. And in the beginning, he'll make a little bit less on the front end, but he'll be able to go out and get as much of that in the future as he can. So that's the beauty of having the dichotomy of having the veterans and the newer folks, is that they're able to lean on the veterans in the beginning, getting those types of accounts across the finish line, learn how to do it on your own, and then go out and do it on your own. And again, we've got specialists from a support standpoint on the commercial side, the personal side, and the benefits side, where they're well supported throughout the process.
Yeah, and you guys, and again, whether it's different conferences we've seen you at, or you and I have run into each other at, you guys at one point in time had a division in trucking, or maybe you were doing something within the trucking realm, transportation realm. Am I right? Is that something you guys are getting back into, or you guys are still doing?
Yeah. So, great question. We had sold our first wholesale operation in 2019, and since then, and since coming back to the family agency, we have started a trucking wholesale operation again. So now we are, just about 2 years into our Panther insurance venture. And all we do is we're a wholesale MGA for trucking risks, and we work with independently held trucking agencies to help place trucking risks. And mostly 18-wheel long haul. We're doing the liability, we're doing the auto physical damage, the motor truck cargo, we're doing the GL, we're doing the non-trucking liability, and all the lines in between. And it's been fun. We're we had a nice start. We're building it all organically. We just hired our first person outside of the state of Florida and Mississippi, and continuing to grow the rest of the southern belt. And in the wholesale business, I feel is slightly different than the retail business, where you really have to be specialized. I think when we had our prior wholesaler, we were all things to all people. And it was hard. Like, we were big enough to be attractive, but we weren't niche enough in um, any particular vertical where we cornered that part of the market, and we weren't large enough on to be able to compete long term with the name brands in that business. So um, we sold to a strategic. It was a beautiful opportunity for us, but now, as we build up this new venture, it's all about being more specialized and more niche and serving agents that specialize in that type of business.
Yeah, and what you've brought up there and building this back up from scratch again, and being able to have that niche. How how are you able to, or what are you guys doing intentionally to stand out? A lot of people are wanting to get into trucking. It's been a thing for years. I tried to get into it myself and failed miserably. But those that I'm gonna get into trucking, but you got to be able to stand out from that. You got to be a little bit different in what you guys are offering, or the way you're doing things, or maybe a particular section of that. What are you guys doing to stand out at Panther as opposed to other trucking wholesalers?
Principles are rather similar to the retail side, right? It's I think one of the reasons why we got into the trucking sector is that we felt it was very underserved for retailers that specialized in that business, whether it's not getting quick response times, not getting quotes in a timely fashion. And in that business, sometimes first to the market wins. It's been um, a
I would
business
say,
where,
especially in that niche.
right. And that's one of the businesses where, supply and demand is not favoring the customer and it goes goes beyond, just the capacity that's in it. You need to continue to get rate to keep up with loss trend, because historically it hasn't performed well. And the, uh, the, the, the risks have been underpriced. And right now, people are starting to feel the effects of that, especially, with rising inflation and gas prices continuing to go up. There's a lot of pressure. So what makes us stand out, to circle back to your question, is that we do have stable carriers that have limited distribution in the area that we're in. And we have a fantastic team that's able to respond quickly and get quotes for the risks that matter. We're very, very selective about the risks that we're placing with our carriers so that we can be around for the long term, right? We want to make sure that we've got good operators and drivers that don't have crazy violations, and that we're hauling the right types of goods, and that aren't hazardous, and that, we're putting ourselves in position to not have big losses. And um, we've got great carrier partners that are partnering with us in those scenarios. And we've got great groups of agents that understand what we're looking for. And that's been the recipe for success, right? Is even though it's a, crowded space, in the economy, we're just finding our way in on the insurance front. And it's all through the things that we sort of mentioned before: being family first, continuous improvement, loyalty, always doing the right thing.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like right now, it's a good niche to be in this Amazon world that we live in, the home shopping type, the online shopping kind of thing. Logistics is kind of sexy right now. A lot of people
It
are
sure
getting in.
is.
It's crazy to me to think about. Me growing up, I was like, no kid dreamed of being a truck driver or logistics. Now it's like people are like really looking. I got a senior in high school right now. It's like, as he's digging through different majors and whatnot, he's like, man, some of the things I've never thought about are looking a lot better to me now because of where we're at in our world and where we're at with AI and where we're at with technology. It's like maybe being, a welder, electrician, HVAC guy, a logistics driver, that's not so, I mean, it's not so bad anymore. It's kind of sexy right now.
People need it. And, I think, where people have success is they're willing to do the things that other folks aren't willing to do. And, like, a lot of people think that they could just be behind a desk and, make it all happen. And I think the trades are being taken for granted, but, like, similar to insurance, right? Like, when you really need them, you need them to show up, and you need them to show up fast, right? And you need them to be there. Um, you need a plumber quickly. Like, there's nothing worse than having your toilet overflowing, or, not having power, or, like, whatever the case might be. Trades are extremely important. And I hope that, you know, the future generations don't lose sight of that. Just like I
I
hope they
completely
don't
agree.
lose sight of how important what we do is.
100%. Now, on that note, though, one of the things that I was trying to figure out a way, and you transitioned this beautifully for me, so I appreciate your checks in the mail. But like, as we're kind of going through this, how do you, as insurance guy, insurance agency owner, embrace innovation without sacrificing personal touch, that relationship side of it?
Yeah, I mean, we've always, as an organization or as a family, have tried to give our folks the tools that they need to be better at their job and be better at their work and put them in positions to win, right? And if we have a tool that could help us do our job a little bit faster, or provide quicker response, or help us be one step closer to the right solution, we need to seriously consider putting that in the hands of our folks. And so it's not about, you know, losing that touch. In fact, it's just about making more time so you could have more of that touch. And so we are, continue to use tools and look at more tools that will help us deliver better service to our clients, help us be in front of our clients more, doing value added activities. And so it's really important that we embrace AI. I think there's a lot of efficiencies that we are going to get from it. There's a lot of ways that it's going to be able to extract data and help us make better business decisions. But a wise person told me, if you want it to work the way you want it to work, you got to do it yourself. And we are vigilantly working at that. And it's going to take time, but when we do, get the right pieces in place, it's going to work really well.
Yeah, and one of the other things that I wanted to kind of wrap up with a little bit, and I think it's important right now because I've had some conversations as I've been traveling through the conference circuit, and I've talked to some agencies that are a little bit deflated, and it's like, we were so used to this market, now it's changing, and there's some challenges right now in this market going on.
Without a doubt.
So talk to the, why is the independent agent still matter? Why are we still important in this changing world, in this digital world, in this AI world that you mentioned, in this, market? Some lines of coverages are still hard, some are softening, some are here, some are there. Some of the carriers are coming back, some of them are still on moratoriums. Like, there's a lot going on right now, but encourage my audience, it's listening, that might be struggling a little bit, might be thinking maybe I should sell my agency. Why are we still important?
I think that's where the opportunity lies, right? Everyone is going through the same challenges. And, I think that we're certainly under pressure, but it's different types of pressure, right? Like being an independent agent, we don't have different investors to answer to, different than the private equity firms that are looking to exit in 3 to 5 years, or the public companies that have quarterly reports and earnings that they have to answer to. Not that those are bad, but they're under different types of pressures. And the margin expansion that they need to make is not necessarily the long-term view that we need to take. And we're able to sacrifice on certain parts to create a culture that is exciting, to better serve our clients, to use those dollars to invest back into the client experience. And we've been fortunate to get folks from some of the larger brokerage houses because they value that culture, that ability to service their clients in a different way without being cut off, without having those types of limitations. And there's some fun in that. Like, we're having fun doing that. And while it's a lot of work and we have a lot of our own challenges that we're going through, as everyone is, there's something to be said by not being squeezed by, the big guy. And we're having fun doing that. And I think that's that there's something to be said for having local touch, but national reach. And having those capabilities where we're able to write in all 50 states, but you're really getting local touch. And that resonates with people. That's why we matter.
Dude, I love it. And I really appreciate you hanging out with us today. I appreciate you being
Thank
here.
you.
I am so glad that we were able to finally get this, going and connect on this. And I really enjoyed this conversation. I wish we could keep rolling, but we're out of time, unfortunately. But we'll definitely stay in contact for sure.
We have to.
Yeah, thank you again for being here, man.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I mean, I love Insurance Town. I love that I'm finally able to get back on that, and look forward to seeing you the next time, man. And really appreciate you taking the time.
For sure. And now, really quickly, I'll take another minute and a half. Like, how could people find you if they want to find you? And if people want to, learn more about what you're doing, whether it's at your agency or at Panther or anything, I'll give you a minute and a half to hawk whatever you want to hawk. I don't care.
Cool.
Talk to me, man. Tell the audience how they can find you.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to find me is on my LinkedIn, Paul Riemer, Riemer. You can look at any one of our social media pages, Riemer Insurance Group, Panther Insurance, our Facebook groups as well. So it's easy to find the content that we're putting out there on a daily basis. And if you ever need to reach me, you could always email me at premer@reemerinsurance.com. And if there's anything that I could do to be helpful to any of you guys out there, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I always like connecting with new folks and seeing how we could collaborate.
Dude, thanks again, brother.
All right. Thank you, man. Really appreciate you.